At Sespe Creek, we are focused on curating a sustainable, inclusive, and educational cannabis experience. From sun-grown farms to women-led businesses, we are determined to work with the farms and brands that are doing the flower right. Wellfounded is based in Santa Barbara County, and they are one of the brands that is doing just that. In this interview, we get to talk with the boss lady herself, Sara Rotman, to hear her story, the challenges of being sustainable, being a woman in cannabis, and much more. A quick disclaimer: between the wind, nearby freeway, bright sun, and Sarah's huge but lovely Rottweilers, the audio and video may get a little rough at times. But hey, we are all in this together, fighting the good fight. So thank you for your time and enjoy the interview. Hi there, I'm Michelle Rosenblum. I'm the marketing manager for Sespe Creek dispensary out in Ojai. Today I have with me Sara Rotman. She's the CEO and founder of Wellfounded Botanicals and Busy Bees Organics. Before that, she was the owner and creative director of Modco Creative, strategist and chief creative officer for Newco Branding in New York. And she has recently come out here to California, started a cannabis brand amongst other things. And I'm so excited to be speaking with you today at your gorgeous farm up here in Buellton.
Well, we're so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Yeah, awesome. Tell me about the farm. Tell me about what your brand is all about, because you're a little bit more unique. It's not just all about eights and pre-rolls, right?
No, in fact, quite very strictly not at the moment. So, well, Busy Bees Organics, as you mentioned, is the farm. That's our licensed entity here with the state of California and the county of Santa Barbara. We have 22 acres of cannabis, which you can see. It's really fun that we get to grow, you know, way out in the open and all of that. So that's great. And we've been here growing. We had our, we founded our medical collective in 2015, and then when Prop 64, came into play, we switched over to both medical and recreational. We learned a lot about how to grow cannabis. We've learned a lot about how not to grow cannabis during that time as well. And and
was that through trial and error?
Very much trial and error, and back in the day it was so hard to get good information, and I think one thing that's really special about Santa Barbara County is the deep knowledge for really, really great agriculturalists that we have here in the community. We have such wonderful teachers and mentors that we can turn to here for regenerative practices and organic farming practices. And although we can't be certified organic because that's a federal designation, we are a Clean Green certified farm.
That's right.
And we are very strict about our practices. So we do strictly follow organic practices, which is what enabled us to be Clean Green certified. And we work really, really hard to support our local community. So one thing that we also really commit to is our philanthropic efforts are with the food bank here, Santa Barbara Food Bank, which is somebody that we like to support quite a lot. As in the rest of California, most farming communities were really hit hard by COVID, and we have such a sad level of intense poverty, even here in North County, Santa Barbara, mostly concentrated in our Latinx communities and in the farming communities. So we work really hard to support our farming communities. We work really hard to, bring in the local labor and to really give them, good opportunities, pay, upward mobility. So that's a really big part of what we're proud of here. And that's, separate from the product, but also providing safe environment for them, regular year-round work, and, and allowing them to be operating in a place that, we're pesticide-free. Most of our pest management practices are beneficial insects, and then just, good farming practices. We only do 2 turns a year so that we're able to do a cover crop to try to create some biodiversity in the soil and not to be solely monocropping, which is hard to do, because the licensing is so expensive, so we really can't afford to go fallow, but we do a season in between our cannabis turns of different legumes and sort of grasses to try to create some biodiversity in our soil. So that's a big part of our farming.
Awesome.
Yeah,
you're not just like wrecking the soil. You're trying to get it all working together. For
sure. And in fact, when we bought the farm back in 2014, had not been taken care of very well, and it took us 3 years to really regenerate the soil. We first planted this field that you see behind us with our first cover crop to try to put some health back into it. We couldn't grow a single blade of grass. There had been so many herbicides and pesticides used for so many years and not rotating crops that the soil was really dead. So we spent 3 years working on it. I became very obsessed with the works of Joel Salatin and regenerative farming, and we got 2,000 chickens, and we had chicken tractors moving all over this farm and all kinds of goats and different livestock to try to really put some natural nutrients back in the soil and to rotate it and give it rest as it needed it. And it took us a long time to make the soil healthy again.
Well, it looks like it's working.
Yeah, we're really excited. It does. We're very fortunate. And we work with some really talented agronomists here that have really helped us on that journey. And so that's been, the thing that's enabled us to grow, I think, pretty spectacular cannabis. And nothing beats the California sunshine.
Yeah. So you mean when you came out here from New York, it just wasn't like this already?
No. Not quite. No, it was a huge labor of love. In fact, my wonderful husband, who's my partner here, he put in just every stick of infrastructure you've seen. So we didn't have any of this fencing. We planted, well, with the exception of these magnificent trees that you see around us, we planted over 4,000 trees on the property, around the perimeter of the property. The olive trees you see here, we have about 600 olive trees that were a birthday present our first year here. So I think that's
cool.
terribly
What a nice
romantic.
present.
Yeah. And we're actually hopefully going to get some olive oil this year from them. So that's the first year. Very excited about that. And everything else was a sort of, as we say in Spanish, poco a poco, bit by bit. We got, we kept improving it. And, when we came here, I was gravely ill. And I like to say, this farm really sustained me and we sustained the farm. And it was a real place of healing. So we tried to heal the farm while it healed me.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of that.
Well, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that and how you started. Obviously you were in New York City.
Yeah.
You were doing marketing and branding for some pretty big brands.
Yeah.
So to go from that to living on a farm, that's a pretty big transition.
For sure.
I understand that you did have some health issues that kind of helped with that, but it sounds like it was more than that. What made you make the big change?
Well, I think that was sort of the final thing that made it a full-time change. But, although very much a city girl, and you're right, I was in fashion and in 5-inch heels every day of my life. And you can ask, my lovely Kim, who's one of our fantastic team members and very senior and wonderful person on our team. But she can attest, I did not go to school in flats, ever. No. No, you wear your high heel shoes to work and you wear them all day and you represent. And that was a pretty strict rule I had, which I have not adhered to in the last 7 years at all. But
you'd sink right in the floor.
I would sink right in the floor right here. Yeah, no, I'm all Ariats all the time now. But no, I think I've always enjoyed the outdoors. I was born and raised in Michigan and North Carolina, and I always had like a weekend place. And I've always, loved horses and dogs and animals. But so having that as a part-time escape was always really important to me. And certainly we bought this farm as, a place of solace, a place of escape from that busier bustle of city life. But when I got ill, or when I was finally diagnosed, I'd been ill for quite some time, it turned out, but we had bought the farm. And within about 3 weeks, I ended up in the hospital in renal failure because I had been misdiagnosed for so long. And so, when you are facing a near-death experience, and I ended up in and out of hospital for years, I just couldn't work, then things change really quickly. Things that seemed like weekend niceties become sort of the only thing that keeps you alive. And so therefore, suddenly the high heels weren't so important.
Yeah. Take things for granted, right?
Yeah, you do.
So while you were in New York, what was your relationship with cannabis?
Non-existent, I'm a little embarrassed to say. And shame on me, I just wasn't a cannabis person. I was a very caffeinated person. I was a martini at dinner person. I was a Bordeaux person, and I was not at all interested in what I understood at the time to be cannabis culture. And, again, I was clearly woefully ignorant and misinformed in the extreme. And as I said, much to my shame, I'm not proud of that, but that's a fact. And so I very reluctantly came to cannabis because I had a lot of the misconceptions that we've been fighting in the last, 8 years. We've had this farm, because that's what had been publicized to me, and I had no other experience to measure it by. And so I just sort of thought cannabis, first of all, I was a competitive athlete, and I just didn't think smoking was something I wanted to do on any level. I wasn't a tobacco smoker. I just wasn't into it. I didn't like smoke.
Athletes need to breathe, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought, why would I do that? I didn't have any judgment about it. I didn't care if anybody else wanted to participate, but I just thought, I don't want to be slowed down. I don't want to be sleepy.
Sure.
I want my mind to be more active. And
Michael Phelps did cannabis.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's what I said. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was talking about, but I just was like, not interested, And then, of course, you get sick, you find yourself in renal failure, Western medicine has nothing for you. And I always say, like, oh, Jesus, I'd have sucked the fart out of a dead chicken if it would have helped at that point. So, my husband, and it's a very, very long story and not terribly interesting, but I had gone through all of Western medicine, and we had by this time started growing all of our own food, and we were doing so many things to try to make me well, and I just couldn't get well, and I couldn't work, and I was in debilitating chronic pain. I had a crippling depression, and I became genuinely suicidal for the first time in my life because I couldn't get past the pain, and all they kept saying was, "We'll take opioids," and I'm deeply uncomfortable with that. It wasn't good for me. It's not sustainable, and it made me a little bit psychotic. Like, I'm one of those people that hallucinates pretty quickly and feels very uncomfortable and anxiety. I didn't like it, and so my husband had been doing a lot of reading on, cannabis and ways you could take cannabis that weren't smoking. Because again, pardon my language, but
you're good there.
He said, look, and there's also this thing called CBD that they have now, which is less psychotropic, so you can work. Because one of the challenges I face with the opioids is, you take a morphine pill, you can't work. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Now you're in a coma. You're not in pain, but you're in a coma, and I didn't want to have that as my life.
It sounds like you needed to have some pretty high levels of functionality to do the work you were doing.
I think, but I mean, God, the way that they medicated me, I couldn't even make it to the bathroom by myself. It was really bad. So, yes, I needed something that was more manageable. And so he suggested I try cannabis and explore that. And that was, again, back in 2014. And, in Prop 215, there was the market, sometimes you got really helpful stuff and sometimes it was a disaster. So he introduced me to edibles and concentrates and, Rick Simpson oil and all of these things that have an incredible amount of benefit if you can get a consistently dosed, consistent supply that's free of pesticides and toxins and all those things, none of which we knew in Prop 215, because you rely on the good nature or ethical practices of whatever farmer may or may not be featured in that dispensary. And it's through no fault of many of the dispensary owners, but it's just nobody knew what the hell was in anything.
No.
Any of us were in.
And like you said, since it's federally hasn't been decriminalized yet or whatever, like we can't use the terms like organic or whatever on the packaging, and so how's the consumer supposed to know what's in their product?
Exactly. And so as challenging as Prop 64's rollout has been in the state of California, at least the testing protocols, which again are not without, they are not perfect, to say the very least, but at least consumers now can know exactly what's in the medicine that they're taking. And they know that it's been strictly adhered to. And so I'm really grateful for that, because in my time when we first started in cannabis, very happily we discovered that, cannabis oil, whether I ingested it, took it sublingually, worked. If I could get something, that was consistent, it worked. But the problem was it was never consistent. I would try to get high doses of CBD, low THC, so I could enjoy the entourage effect, but also so I could work. And that's like literally somebody's writing on the package with a Sharpie, and you don't know what the hell's in it. And then there were times when I ended up back in New York, I always say I was going to a meeting with a very high-powered fashion designer. I was still trying to work. I was doing a fragrance campaign. And I took a whole vial of what was supposed to be high CBD, low THC, like concentrate. There was no CBD. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and I always, I was, it's like a 60-story building, and I was going to the top floor, and I was sort of had my coffee and my cab, and I was like, this is the greatest coffee I've ever had. I've never felt that way about coffee, and I was like in this magical place. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not right. And by the time I get into the elevator, I was like, it was really hitting me, and I was like, oh, fuck. And by the time I'm on like the 30th floor, I'm now kind of doing that crab walk on the wall, like, oh shit, this is really bad. By the time I got to the 60th floor, I had to have a perfect stranger help me get back into a cab. I couldn't even read my driver's license. I couldn't figure out where I lived. I got my husband on the phone. I was like, you need to talk to this cab driver, make sure I don't die. I have to get in the apartment. And I was like belligerently high for 3 days. I could, that horrible place where you just can't get it out of your body.
Yeah.
That was terrible. And so that was sort of just an intolerable position to be in. And at the time, we'd been, as I said, growing all of our own food. And we had been doing a little experimentation, but we just, maybe we'd have a plant here and there. We didn't know anything, but, Nate was like, you can't live like this. We're already growing our own food. We have this farm. How hard could it be to found a collective and grow our own cannabis? And I was like, exactly. We're smart people.
Yeah. We're city people. We have these jobs and whatever. Like, it's just farming, right?
Yeah. Thank God Nate was a third-generation agricultural family here in Santa Barbara County, so he had a little more familiarity. And I was at least a weekend country girl, but Jesus, God, no, we didn't know what we were doing, and we spent a lot of time and money learning. But we learned very quickly, and we made a lot of costly upsetting mistakes, and we learned from them all, thank God, and now we're here. So that was kind of that journey,
So just to clarify that a little bit, so you were still in New York when you first started trying cannabis?
Yeah, well, I had this farm already, so I was at the time sort of bi-coastal.
Oh, I see. And so when you first got the farm, when you bought the farm here, there was no intention of cannabis at the time?
No, but that changed within like 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, because I was in the hospital in 3 weeks. So 3 weeks later, Nate's like, you have got to try this. You know what I'm saying? So that was like June, July 2014. By the end of in 2015, we found our collective. So it was a very short window. I think the universe put this farm in our path so that cannabis and I could become very good friends. And help each other survive.
So when you first started growing then, was it just for personal use, or right away were you like, let's do this for real because you'd had lame experiences with cannabis?
I was the latter, and I think, I'm an entrepreneurial soul. And I also felt, much more importantly than the entrepreneurial side of things, and we really never came into this for the money, I didn't want anyone else to go through what I went through with experimenting. I mean, I got arsenic poisoning, I got from a bad batch of concentrates. When you're doing concentrates, it's different. It's so much stronger. So any of the negative things that people put on that plant are concentrated 1,000, 10,000 times. And so, again, unscrupulous farming practices, in order to boost yield, have tremendous deleterious impact to consumer at the end if not regulated. So we're some of the few people that really welcomed the regulation from Prop 64 when we switched over. And we've always had really, really strict practices. So, even now, it's not a requirement to have organic practices in outdoor cannabis or indoor. But we've always maintained that that's a strict requirement for us, because we want to make sure that we're putting forth products that are the safest, for anyone to use, and that's from our personal experience. And so we always wanted to be able to provide medicine, for our community members.
I love that.
We knew was safe.
Good. So, talking about sustainability, this farm is Clean Green certified, right?
Yes.
When you first started growing, was that already on your mind to be Clean Green, or when did that come in?
I don't even think I knew that Clean Green was a certification. It's very new, obviously. We knew that we wanted to follow organic practices, so we knew we couldn't be designated organic because of the federal designation, but that doesn't mean the practices couldn't be followed just without credit for it. So we always really, really strictly adhered to organic practices. Our chief compliance officer comes out of the certified organic program. She comes out of traditional agriculture and organics, and so she's set up farms actually all around the world and sort of manage their organic practicing program. And so that was really helpful. Her name is Carmela Beck. She's fantastic. And she worked at another local berry company here. So she was very, very knowledgeable, and we work with a few agronomists that are also have a lot of familiarity with organic practices. So, for example, we have our feed program is a custom blend of organic Weiser that we have custom made really for the cannabis plants, and that is, again, all organic. It's much more expensive. It's incredibly stinky. It's like our bat guano. We can't even really use a lot of the fish derived organic medium because of all the mercury in the fish, which would pop for heavy metals for us. So when you're dealing with organic practices, many of the organic practices that would be allowed in certified organic would get us non-passing tests in cannabis. So it's actually something that's extremely more rigorous and strict than certified organic.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it's very challenging. So we do, again, we sort of have this Weiser that's created out of all organic material, and that means that all of the rest of the practices that we participate in, have to work that much harder and be that much smarter, which is, again, why we do things like rotate our crops to try to get nitrogen input into the soil to help create biodiversity. We add, biologics to the soil, again, to create biodiversity. Think of it like probiotics for your own digestive system. The soil is a living, breathing thing that needs that same kind of loving care and food.
Yeah.
So if you only ate, spaghetti and meatballs 100% of your life, you would die and become very gravely malnourished and ill, even though there was food there. It's the same for the plants and the soil. And the soil needs that. And so, we do that. And almost all of our pest control is really done with beneficial insects. So there's a few different insects that combat different things, but also different practices, such as really being careful with your weed population. That's always just good agronomist or agronomy, but it's doubly important for us. If the farmer next door to us decides to go fallow and lets the weeds grow up, waist high in his field and we're downwind, that's going to create a bug population that we would have a hard time overcoming because we can't use any traditional sprays or insecticides. And so you really have to be thoughtful about practices that are happening around you as well as sort of on site. So things like having tall weeds anywhere nearby, can create pest pressure that you don't need. So maintaining all of that is a really, really big deal. And
yeah, absolutely.
we work every day. Like the thing that we know about farming is, once you see a problem, that barn left the station, like you are in trouble. You have to always be, especially in organic farming, you have to maintain health, plant health, soil health, at all times, rigorously, way before a problem ever shows up.
Yeah.
But so it's really about consistency and observation.
So, obviously that's a lot of work going into making it that sustainable.
Yes.
As you said before, you didn't get into this necessarily for the money.
Yeah, no, it would not be sustainable, I can promise you that.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, so talk to me about that though, because obviously here in California, there's a lot of farms that are growing right now.
Yes.
We're trying to work with ones that are doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's very
we
hard.
work with a lot of farms that are either Clean Green certified or they're Sun and Earth certified.
Yeah.
There's a couple other certifications that are
Yeah.
around now as well. And I'm hearing the same thing with some of them that I've interviewed as well, that, if you're getting into this business for money, it better be more about your passion, because it's tough.
It's hard. It's very hard.
Especially if you're trying to do it the right way.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, that we take a tremendous hit on margin. And, everyone who's not in the industry, who doesn't understand the regulated market and the costs associated with that, think, oh, we're just printing money. And, I wish that was true, but it's just not.
It's not.
No, and the
a lot of
margins are
education
getting
needs to
smaller.
happen.
A lot of education, the margins get smaller. We have to do things that other businesses don't, just relative to, local lobbying and, community awareness and advocacy. That just has to be part of your business plan. It has to be part of your presence, because if you don't do that, you create a problem for yourself and the community. And unfortunately, since we are so new, we have to spend significant time and resources doing community outreach and, getting people to understand, what I didn't understand. And I have a lot of patience for that, because I was one of those ignorant people, and so I understand why that's so important, but it does add cost and time and frustration to, your everyday practices. And if you don't love it, that would be more painful. But, for me, it literally saved my life. So I come at it with the sort of zealousness of a convert, if something saved your life, you tend to be telling everyone about it at dinner, so I'm definitely that girl.
Well, now we're telling all of our listeners also.
And all you guys too, and all my Scoobies. Hi, Tonka. Hello, little bear.
And the puppies.
Yeah.
So this sustainability aspect, I feel like of all the products that are out there, car oil, we're deforesting the rainforest for beef farms and all these kinds of things. There's a lot of things out there that are just outrageously not sustainable. And when people think, oh, we need to think about sustainability, generally cannabis is in more liberal territory, not always, but most, pot smokers and stuff, tend to lean.
I think the customers are, yes.
Exactly. And so when people think about, the weed industry, it's a plant, we don't think of it as being unsustainable.
It's funny, I agree with you, and what I've learned since I've been in the industry is how true and untrue that really is.
Right.
And I think I love to see, in this community, we're a sun-grown farm.
Yeah.
And
right there.
It's literally right there. And when you start paying attention to the statistical analysis, and so I feel like there's several designations. So first of all, there's legal cannabis that's operating compliantly within a regulated market. There's illegal cannabis, which is operating way outside of any regulatory environment. Unfortunately, those bad actors, some of them are not, but because of the nature of it being illegal, federally, because people have had to hide, that has fostered huge problems in two areas. One, it's made people run into forests way up north and hide where it's, low density populations, where it's mountainous region, where we wouldn't never grow a row crop. So cannabis really is a row crop, right? It's significant, that's just where it's happy. Growing anything in the middle of a pine forest is just not conducive to efficient agriculture, and there's limited water supply. So, unfortunately back in the day, those small-scale farmers were taking water supply from surface water where they shouldn't. They weren't necessarily paying attention to their runoff. They're growing on steep slope. they're cutting down protected, species to do it, and all of those things are problematic, and we still have that hangover in the cannabis industry in California from those bad actors. Now, there's a lot of really amazing farmers up north that are doing tremendous work and are not in that category, so I'm really strictly speaking about especially people who are in an ongoing basis, doing this, unregulated activities. Makes everybody look bad. A lot of the laws that were written in California right now were meant to combat that behavior, but it's not applicable in San Diego, Santa Barbara, Salinas, you know what I mean? It's just completely not how we do things, and so that's been really challenging. But I think there are environmental concerns that the laws were designed to address that are real from the illicit market. Those don't apply here, but there are also grave environmental concerns that I don't think people spend as much time talking about. I'll probably make a lot of people very angry when I say this, but indoor cannabis is one of the most, energy inefficient crops on the planet.
I heard it's 25 times more.
It's got to be more than that. I read a statistic, and I certainly don't quote me on this recently, where it makes up something like 3 to 7% of the energy consumption in the United States. It's a staggering amount of energy that's required.
Wow.
And that does produce beautiful, trimmable flower, for sure, no doubt. But at what cost?
At what cost, that's right.
And I think, again, indoor practices came to being in order to hide from the federal government. And I have an enormous amount of respect for the talented growers that create beautiful, beautiful plants in those environments, but again, at what cost?
Right.
And so that's really challenging as a sun-grown farmer. And I think, and then you have greenhouse, which is a wonderful hybrid of both. I think you can get both. And I certainly, I don't know, I feel like, I hope we get to a place of legal nationalization where the whole country can enjoy, the fruits of California outdoor farmers' labor. You know what I mean? Because just like I can't have an avocado in Michigan that was locally grown, perhaps outdoor cannabis should be available to folks in Michigan, you know what I mean, that was grown here from California under our beautiful blue sky with low humidity and huge temperature swings between day and night, which is what cannabis requires.
That's right. Make it a little easier to cross state lines.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about being a woman in cannabis.
Yeah.
When you were in New York, and the brands that you were working with, a lot of it was high fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there you were working with a lot of women as well, or would you say?
I would say it is staggering to learn how many brands that are marketed, or designed for, and marketed to women are not run by women.
Yeah. I guess that's not that surprising, is it?
No. It's disappointing, but not surprising.
Yeah. Well, would you say same is true for cannabis?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say that I have not yet seen enough female founders in any business I've ever encountered, but as many as I would like to see.
That's right. Well, here you are making a difference.
Yes, I'm trying, and we do try to, on our farm, we fully embrace our, feminist powers. I always try to give opportunities for other women to embrace their entrepreneurial spirit, to be in positions of power and leadership, and certainly on our farm that's the case. I'm the CEO and founder. My husband's also my co-founder, but I think his title is secretary on our corporate documents, although he doesn't do much of that. We have Kim, who's our, EVP of brand. We have Carmela Beck, who is our chief compliance officer, and I think almost all of our vendor teams, whether it be our attorneys, our outside compliance officers, some of our engineers, all of the local vendors that have been hugely important to us have all been female-led companies and agencies or female leads. So we really were part of that,
awesome.
and whenever possible, also we really try to support, as I mentioned before, our Latinx community here, which is in need of a lot of support.
Yeah, absolutely. Where we are too.
Yeah.
At Sespe Creek, our CEO is Chelsea, so women-owned there. Our HR and our team staff management, so fulfillment and bud tender management. I'm the marketing manager, so we have a lot of female.
That's so awesome.
running in the business there. So it's cool to interact with another.
It's rare. I remember meeting Chelsea way back in the beginning of my process, who I actually met through my attorney, who was running a little event, and that's where I met Chelsea the first
mixer
time.
with Christine, right?
Yes.
Sespe Verde.
Yes. She's so lovely.
She really is.
Yeah, she's great. And so, yeah, exactly. That's exactly where I met Chelsea. And I was so happy to find, another female owned, because there's, on the dispensary side, there's not enough women either. So, we work, one of the very first stores that we got into locally in Santa Barbara County was also female and Latina owned and operated. So, we do try to do that, but it always makes us happy to help support other women.
Yeah. I was just telling my assistant on the way up here when I was first applying to work for Sespe Creek. I'd been to Sespe Creek, but I didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
I'm not from Ojai. I'm down in Ventura, and we have a bunch of dispensaries down in Port Hueneme, et cetera. So that's it was more local for me to go there.
Sure.
But I've been traveling more to Ojai, and I was looking to apply, and I was like, man, all the dispensaries and everything I've been to, they've all been so alpha, and there's been a lot of
culture.
Yeah, and it's and I was thinking is that what I want to get into, And I was like, it's cannabis, it's cool. I'm in marketing, it's cool. Let's get into here. I smoke weed, I'll figure it out. And I took the interview, and it was Chelsea, our CEO, and Allie, our HR manager, 2 women. I was like, this is new already for me. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm like, this is good. I'm liking this. And then when I got in there and just saw how boutique everything was, and everything just had. It wasn't so alpha dominated, all these things, and I was like, okay, they're putting a different spin on it here, and I'm so happy to be working at this dispensary.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm happy to be working with brands that have the same ethos. Yeah. That being said, though, what do you think are some of the challenges being a woman in the cannabis space in particular? Have you ran into anything in particular that was
specific to cannabis? I mean, I will say, as someone who's been in an entrepreneurial role my whole career, I think if I were to sort of step back and start pinpointing all of the different things that caused me to be othered, caused me to be sort of slightly disrespected, slighted, that were clearly sexist, I probably wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, because it's constant. And the way that I've always combated that is just say, look, I recognize and understand I'm going to be treated differently. I recognize and understand I have to be better, faster, stronger, smarter to be perceived as equal, and I still likely won't be. And I absolutely steadfastly refuse to spend a whole lot of time whining about it because it doesn't help. So what I would like to do is to win and beat them by succeeding. It drives them fucking crazy. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love watching someone just get so goddamn mad that I'm doing well. And it just drives me. And then I want to put my hand out and help other women do the same. Yeah. Because until we can have more women just saying, you know what, I hear that noise, I get it, I don't get it, I don't care. It's not going to trip me up. And then you just do anyway. Again, yes, it's not fair. Yes, it's harder. Yes, it's bullshit. All of that is true. Yeah. But you know what? If I don't win anyway, none of us are going to get there. So I have to win anyway, and then I have to bring my sisters with me. And the other thing that I will do always is when I see another woman succeeding, I fucking cheer and fuck yes. Yeah. We never drag our sisters down.
Right on.
And that's what we got.
Amen.
Yeah. It's sexism exists. It's human nature.
That's right.
It's just like bigotry. It's disgusting and foul and wrong. And I won't give it any oxygen. I just won't.
So I have I have a friend that she's a programmer, has a really successful video game company, and a lot of her team programmers are male.
Sure.
And she goes out to events and promotes her business.
Yep.
And she's there talking about her business and everything, and people come up to ask questions. They always ask them to her male partners.
Of course.
Because they think they're the owner or whatever.
Yep.
And they're like, actually, this gal right here is the one you really should ask the questions to. And they go, oh, and they kind of talk to her, but eventually they kind of steer
always
back.
happens to me too. If
I'll think about you and your husband maybe
all the time, or even if I bring in an employee, you know what I mean, who's wonderful and talented, but if it's an employee that's 15 years my junior and clearly less experienced, I will still have that.
Yeah, it's like they didn't get the memo that you're the boss lady.
Oh, my business card.
Yeah. Do you have boss lady on your business card?
I do.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah. But I mean, and that certainly happens. Even going into, public hearings, the comments that I've had said, if you are legitimately angry because a negotiation hasn't gone in a scrupulous manner, even with, it still happens, we are emotional. Mm-hmm. Men are tough.
Yeah.
And anyway, like I said, you can complain about my emotional success all you want, motherfucker, because at the end of the day, hold my beer.
Yeah, right.
Just like, I got this. And you could be mad. And you can be mad looking up at me.
That's right. So what would you say to some women that are watching this and maybe thinking about getting into the cannabis industry? Do you think there's space for them?
Hell yes.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more and more.
That's right.
Just grow a thick skin, man, because it isn't going to be fair. And
Yeah.
they're going to say terrible things to you. And just don't take it personally. It's easy to say. It's hard to do.
All right. So you are involved with the Lompoc Valley Cannabis Association Board. And also a founding member of Good Farmers, Great Neighbors.
Yeah.
I love that name.
Thank you. That was one of the time ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so what you were just talking about with, it sounds like you've collaborated or either spoken with some other cannabis farmers,
Sure.
etc. I'm sure you've met ones that are doing it great,
Yeah.
ones that are not so much.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Good Farmers, Great Neighbors. Is that with other farmers or is that more locally?
So Good Farmers, Great Neighbors is actually sort of our consumer-facing campaign that was founded. So the Lompoc Valley Cannabis Association is our 501c3, I think, and then we have the North County Farmers Guild. And so the North County Farmers Guild is a collective of like-minded farmers who we all believe are doing things the right way. So operating, either clean green certified or operating ethically within the county, operating strictly compliantly within the county. And we all kind of got together to try to promote best practices, and we really focus on outdoor sun-grown.
That's right.
And we, again, got together, and our group is, farmers who have banded together to do community outreach, advocacy, and to participate in the legislative process here in Santa Barbara County, so that our people were at the table and being heard accurately. That is the general basis for the North County Farmers Guild. And then Good Farmers, Great Neighbors is our public-facing community outreach program, campaign, and public awareness. So what we're doing with that is trying to provide content, newsletters, updates to people, and also sort of a system by which even other farmers in other communities could potentially do other community outreach, because so much of what is needed now is that education, as you mentioned it, and especially with people who are cannabis familiar or not. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. We're doing so much more good than harm. There's still an enormous amount of fear, so there's a lot of work for all of us to do to sort of share just how hard we are working at being compliant, ethical, green, environmentally sound, sympathetic to our communities and also to our, patients and customers. So it's been a lot to bite off, but it's been really gratifying.
Okay. Yeah. Good. A lot of the farmers that are up north that are, Sun Earth certified, Clean Green certified, they're struggling with a lot of fires right now. Do you worry about the fires out in this area?
Absolutely. I mean, we, thank God, I just don't know what to knock on. This year hasn't been our turn yet. Although the fire season seems to extend forever now. But I mean, it wasn't too many years ago that the Thomas Fire devastated everybody here.
Right.
So,
that Thomas Fire reached us too. You're right in Ventura, Ojai.
Yeah, I know. Ojai, gosh, you guys got hammered.
Surrounded.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
We had just last year a fire. I have terrifying videos of sitting right where we're sitting, just watching, the tankers like buzz the field a couple hundred feet barely overhead, and I just like, please God, I don't know if I want the orange flame retardant on my field or not, because I'm certain that would ruin my crop as much as the fire would, and it was just 2 properties over, and it burned for a long time. So we absolutely live in peril of fire. I mean, that hill, that's an enormous amount of fuel, and we always we live in peril of the day that hill goes up, and it will, unfortunately.
When you're working with your other farmers and talking with them at these groups, are you discussing strategies about fire and what you're all going to do if fire goes through?
We are starting to, one thing that's a bit of an advantage for us here in this environment versus up north where they have a lot more densely populated or dense forestry.
Yeah, redwoods.
We have so much, irrigated agriculture around us, and that is a huge fire break for us. So we'd be more likely to have challenges from smoke drift, you know what I mean? Like if a really big fire again happened on that hillside and we had an enormous amount of fuel burning and that ash came into our field at harvest or just before, that would be an issue. And I just don't know that there's anything that we can do to combat that. I think we do things like, we have a riparian area here, anything that we control, we keep our weeds down. We do a lot of weed, control, and we do some livestock grazing in order to keep, the grasses that tend to catch fire and burn quickly. And we make sure that, on the highway, because we are on the highway, that we have, all of that's weed whacked down, and, if somebody's errant cigarette, it's just all of this stuff. But on a larger scale, I mean, yeah, if we get into a forest fire situation like they're having up north or like we had during the Thomas fire, it's just done wrong. I hate to say it. I wish there was something different. But
everything happens so quickly.
Yeah, all we have is the trailers hitched up. We get the animals out and pray.
Yeah, I love hearing about these organizations like Good Farmers, Great Neighbors, because I recently interviewed Cameron, who's one of the founders for High Tide Distro, which is Soul Spirit, and Fiddler's Greens, etc. And he told me this really great story. Well, sad story, but great how the community came together, where one of the farms, neighboring farms, burnt down, and they lost everything. And but they rallied together, and a bunch of the farmers donated some of their crop, and one day they were able to.
Everybody brought genetics. I remember that story.
Oh, you heard about that?
Yeah. No, that was awful. And and I remember reading a story about people who had cash buried, buried like 12 feet down, but it still melted like the pond.
Oh my God!
Even their life savings because they couldn't dig it up and get out in time.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
But I remember that story, and I know everybody brought genetics for them.
Yeah, it was like, oh man, at least we all came together to like do that. When I say we, it's the cannabis industry,
For sure. No, we have a good industry here like that. It's really, especially here in North County. We have a great industry in South County too, but we operate a little bit differently. Santa Barbara's a big county, and we have very distinct sort of methodologies. We're an outdoor farmers. Down in Carp, they're obviously a greenhouse. They have a great greenhouse culture down there, but we're just different.
Yeah, I think the average consumer out there just doesn't think that much about what all the farmers are doing and the community involved and all that. So I love sharing these stories.
Yeah. Because it'd be fun for them to know more about it. I think they would.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it changes the way I shop in the grocery store in terms of, okay, well, where does the vegetables come from? How was this meat treated before I eat it? You know what I mean? Like, where did that all come from? And
did they kick this cow before?
Yeah, or did it, God forbid, go to a slaughter? Like, I don't eat commercial meat. We raise our own because I want to know that animal was treated humanely the whole way through. And well. And, I eat meat. Some people don't, and I respect both of those things. But I don't want to eat something that was treated poorly or fattened up on a feedlot or sent through a chute.
No, so you carry your ethos not just in cannabis, but all throughout your life.
Yeah, I try to.
How you do anything is how you do everything, right?
That's what I'd like to think.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're in Wine County out here.
We are.
Yeah, Wine Country, I should say.
Both.
So are you growing grapes on this farm?
We're not growing grapes on this farm. There's people who grow grapes nearby, but we don't grow grapes here. Well, we have some table grapes, but not wine grapes here.
Sure. How has it been mixing, industries locally like that? Has there been pushback? Is everyone getting along?
That's
all the above?
Question. Yeah, all of the above. I think we have some of our very best friends in Santa Barbara County, and some of the best agriculturalists I know are some of the exquisitely talented winemakers and wine growers in this region. And we're just honored and delighted to spend a lot of time with them, to welcome them here, and to be welcomed into their tasting rooms and homes. We have so many similarities in terms of the different cultivars that we produce, right? So cannabis and wine grapes are incredibly sympathetic in terms of the requirements, needs, and the way that those requirements and needs and environmental inputs cause the plant to express itself. And I always love speaking to my other vineyard managers or wine grower friends or winemaker friends, because we nerd out pretty damn quick on how our plants operate and express the bounty of this part of the world and the terroir here. And so if you catch me out in the field with, like my friend Norm Yost from Flying Goat, or Sonia from Casa du Mats, like we could speak for hours just on how Santa Barbara County and the terroir here influences what we produce in a really loving way. And that's really fun to nerd out together. And most of the experience we've had with the winemakers has been positive like that. We have had pushback from a few just dyed-in-the-wool, committed, anti-cannabis, refusal to learn anything, very, for lack of a better term, just bigoted, small-minded people who feel that we just don't belong in the neighborhood because they don't want the kind. And we've had that said to our faces, and that's extremely disappointing. And one hopes that with education and openness, we can overcome most of that. And in a lot of cases we have, and in some cases, absolutely we have not. And those people are people that, are going to be bitterly disappointed by the fact that we're not going away.
Yeah.
And I enjoy their disappointment.
Well, I'm hoping that conversations like this can help shape that story.
Agreed.
You know, people are out there still think that cannabis is just riddled with crime.
Yes.
You know, and troublemakers, and we might be troublemakers.
It's good trouble.
It's good trouble.
It's
That's
good
right. But as you can see, it's like it's just.
I think it's fear. It's fear. I mean, again, there's always going to be a couple % of people who are just, you know, willfully ignorant in it and remain so. But we have experienced a lot of positivity with being open and transparent. And so we always invite, you asked me earlier today before we set up, you know, do you do this a lot? I was like, well, what we really do often is invite people for tours to say, hey, listen, we're just farmers like you. We love this community like you do. You know, we're growing up in a plant that saved my life, and we're hoping to help other people. And, you know, for the most part, they're like, oh, I had no idea. I thought it was what the failed war on drugs presented it as. And of course they did. They haven't been given any other information. So it is incumbent on us to share the good information.
That's right.
If they choose not to receive it, that I can't control. But I can control giving them the good information, and that's what we try to do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about the wine experiences that we have and have had for the decades, you know, and I feel like cannabis is maybe moving into that space a little bit with experience and coming to the farm.
Totally.
And talk to me more about cannabis tourism.
I'm so excited about that. I'm glad you asked. I mean, I think, you know, it's something that we have to sort of explore. What is the legal, you know, ramifications and mechanisms by which we can do that safely? But I think there's so much curiosity and there's so much opportunity there. And so I know that a lot of some of the planning commissioners here in Santa Barbara County are very interested in exploring that. I know, generally speaking, there's a lot of appetite for agritourism across the board, being something that we lean into here in Santa Barbara County, and we're all for that, so we're very supportive of that. And we've certainly seen, you know, hopefully as COVID continues to, or I was going to say continues to improve, but hopefully it doesn't backslide.
I know, right?
And that the opportunities for, you know, more public interaction become available. I do think there's huge opportunity. I think there's a lot of interest. I think certainly as a marketing person, the millennial and, you know, Gen Z and the people that are going to come after that, as they come into, you know, legally consumable space, they're much more interested in a broad variety of experiences. So wine is one of them, food is one of them, you know, other different agricultural and, you know, just outdoor activities, and certainly cannabis are a part of that. And I think that's going to be a huge help, especially when you talk to your general cannabis consumer, who I believe will become just a general consumer in the United States, hopefully in the next few years. They're going to want to know where their weed comes from. You know, does it come from a warehouse in Culver City, or does it come from a farm like mine? And, you know, that will be their choice to see what suits them better. I mean, I hope a farm like mine is more compelling. I like to think, like, I mean, I always say, like, you know, an animal doesn't want to be raised in a cage indoors either. And even though you have false light and food to feed it, like, these plants are so happy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't want to live in a box either with artificial light, like in a space station. That would make me really sad. So I know, like, people play music for plants and talk to plants, and I think
cute.
that they love it.
I'm a musician. If you need me to come play for the
I would
plants,
love that. Yes,
okay.
please do. Please do. I mean, I just look at them. I mean, they're dancing.
Yeah.
Hello, ladies. You know, and I just think that's great. It has to make it better. We can't replicate the sun. We just can't.
Well, so it's easy to go to a wine farm, you know, grape farm, and meet with the owner, taste the wines, meet with the growers, you know, walk around the farm, take a tour, all these things. That's commonplace that people hop and they do a whole weekend thing out of it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see cannabis do that, and I think you're just like in a primo space for that kind of experience.
Yeah, no, we very much look forward to that day. We've done it privately with a few people, and every time we do it, people just absolutely love it. I can't get rid of them. I'm like, okay, it's time for bed. We gotta go. But good.
I was fortunate enough to experience earlier this summer, before the fires happened, I went up to Soul Spirit Farm up in Trinity County, and they have a glamping experience on their farm. So you stay for 2 nights, really rad tents.
Awesome.
And they do like the farm to table because they grow their own food there too.
That's so cool.
And I was just like,
why not? Right?
Yeah, this is awesome.
No,
so
I want to do that.
I got tickets to bring my mom.
Great.
But now there's fires, so probably gonna have to wait till next year because they're only doing 2 grows a year.
Yeah.
They're totally wishing for rain right now.
We all are.
But that experience, like, here they are, and so not only is it a great experience for the customer, it's a great educational tool for people, but I think for these these smaller farmers that are trying to be sustainable and don't have, over 60 acres to work with, et cetera. How do you compete?
That is just a concern. That's a huge concern. And I have nothing but empathy, for that. I think, again, that's when you lean on brand and the sophistication of the product that you offer in order to get your price point.
I'm thinking the experience, though, too, is, I don't want to go glamping at an indoor grow operation.
No, exactly. But that's just like, if you're going to be Screaming Eagle or are you going to be, Kendall Jackson, and there's value to both. They're just different styles of experience.
Yeah, exactly. I'm encouraged and inspired to hear about where you're going to be going in the future with all of that.
Yeah. Me too. I'm like, that's good for you.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
As a dispensary, you've been trying to think about that as well. Sespe Creek, in Ojai in general does not like chains.
Yeah.
They want to be a unique small town, a destination town, a little bed and breakfast kind of place. And so, as a dispensary, we also have to be creative. Well, how do we expand? How do we scale? Because we can't go open 10 more shops, and so we are also thinking about experience and would love to try to collaborate with folks such as yourself to figure out how to get people from our area to come to you, from people from your area to come to us. Exactly.
We would love it. Yeah, no, we've done some work, again, locally with some of the dispensaries up here in the same way. We have to work through, whatever, makes sense from a legal perspective in each county, but there's great things we can do with private events with people, from your dispensary and, our farm and, I would love and really welcome that opportunity because we're really leaning into that ourselves and really trying to investigate ways we can support companies like yours and ours.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yay.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I have one last question for you. I read that you sometimes like to make THC infused habanero hot sauce.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do, ma'am. And it is excelente.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a hot sauce loving fool, and I like my fermentation program. I'm very big into fermenting things. I really am.
Awesome.
I'm like a total homesteader. And so, my habanero hot sauce is something that I'm very proud of. And
how long have you been making that?
Oh my God, for years.
Yeah.
For years, yeah.
So are you using your own Wellfounded tinctures to put in
Yes,
there?
we'll use that. And I grow the habaneros here and then I ferment them myself. And so I have multi
also organic
vintages,
right?
Everything, of course. Yeah, but I literally have vintages. I have my 2019 batch. I'm like, it's been in there. It's safe. It's good. It's a little prickly.
Yeah.
It's really good.
That's awesome.
I love it. It's
our whole office and everyone on our staff, I think, is a spicy lover.
Oh, nice.
And the more I think about it, the more cannabis users I know, the more I think they are also into spicy. And I'm starting to think is there is cannabis numbing our capsaicin sensors or something? I don't know.
I just think maybe.
We all just have good taste?
Yeah, I just think we have just fantastic.
Yeah.
Spicy meatballs. But it's funny, I made some and we had a private event here and I put a little bottle of my homebrew on the table and everybody swiped them. They weren't really for distribution. At the end of the night, I was like, what the fuck? And everyone was like, so good. Thanks. I was like, okay, great. But it's a hit, so we need to put that into the lineup sometimes.
Yeah, so is Wellfounded going to have the habanero hot sauce line?
I think we'll do it under the Busy Bees name because I don't know why, I just want to call it Busy Bees Farm Flavors and have hot sauce.
That sounds rad.
Yeah, I'm kind of into it. So, I mean, Wellfounded could just as easily do that, I suppose, but I feel like it seems more Busy Bees to me.
Yeah, there's a few farmers markets that are cannabis-based. Yeah, and so
I wanted to do that here. I just, hopefully we'll get to a place where it's a little easier.
A little easier, that's right.
Easier someday soon.
Well,
because can you imagine having a farm stand here? It'd be so fun.
Yeah, it'd be real cute.
It's been a few years.
Awesome.
Very soon. Yeah. Well, what a pleasure to talk to you, Michelle. I'm so grateful for your time.
Yeah, it was a pleasure as well. Anything else you'd like to add to the conversation?
Just that I want to thank my dog for eating all the grass. What are you doing, you crazy dog? Come here, Mackie. Mackie, why do you eat so much grass? You're not even eating it. You're just tearing it up. He's like, because you're not talking to me, Mom.
Are these your guard dogs for the farm?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to mess with them.
No, they're so good and bad at the same time. I love
Thank you so much, Sarah.
God, hang on. You're very welcome. Thank you. What a pleasure to chat with you. All right, you guys stop it. All right.